Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges and not boxes, because we understand that communication is the oxygen of teamwork. We all need communication to thrive in life and work. And in this podcast, we want to increase your communication mastery so that we can all learn to adapt to one another and be effective in our communication. So thanks for being here. Let's learn together. Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges and not boxes, because we understand that communication is the oxygen of teamwork. We all need communication to thrive in life and work. And in this podcast, we want to increase your communication mastery so that we can all learn to adapt to one another and be effective in our communication. So thanks for being here. Let's learn together. This week is the third in our series of C-suite questions from executives in businesses. And today we're going to focus on crisis and reputation management, because every business at some stage is going to hit a crisis, and it's important that we talk about how to communicate during a crisis. So let's look at the first question we've got here. How should I handle a PR crisis to protect our brand and to maintain trust? Highly important, of course, for every business. If you hit a crisis, whatever it may be, maybe you've made a big mistake and you have to apologize for it, or maybe there's an external event that has caused a crisis. We want to be able to act fast. That's the first thing. You want to act fast, but don't rush the message. So you want to step in as quickly as possible to gain control of the narrative before there's any misinformation spreading. You want to acknowledge the situation immediately. And even if you don't have all the answers, you can acknowledge that you're aware of the issue and to define the issue clearly in a way that you are able to control the narrative for the situation. You want to gather all your facts first if you possibly can, so you don't provide incomplete information, or you don't speculate about what's happening or what's going to happen. And then hopefully you will have assembled a crisis response team and prepared them in advance for how to handle this, because you've got to involve public relations, you've got to involve legal, you need the executive leadership all on board so that you can align the messaging amongst those different channels. So that's the first thing, is to act fast, but don't rush your messaging. Secondly, you need to be transparent and own the narrative. So if this is a mistake by the company, own it, because that builds trust. And that's the key thing to do in a crisis, is to build trust. Because if you show responsibility, you show accountability, that's when people will trust you, even if something has gone wrong. You can clearly outline what happened, what went wrong, what has caused this crisis, and then speak about what's being done to fix it. What steps are you taking to address the issue as it now is, but also to prevent any future recurrence of that. And as you're being transparent and owning the narrative, be very careful not to fall into company jargon, to speak in a human, empathetic tone. Because that also will build trust with your listeners. The third thing to do in that sort of situation of a crisis is to communicate consistently and address all of your key stakeholders. So you're going to speak differently to the internal stakeholders, your employees, than you are to the public. So for your internal stakeholders, make sure that the employees hear the message before the public do. Reassure them. Provide guidance to them on what we're saying and what we're doing and what we're seeing as our issues. And then prepare the employees to be able to answer inquiries and challenges from the customers as well. And then to the public, you want to provide a consistent flow of information of what you're doing through the crisis. So press releases, social media, official statements, those kinds of things. You can explain how the issue is affecting your customers, but also you can clearly describe what you're doing to fix the problem. And then for your investors, you want to provide those sort of fact-based updates on risk mitigation and company stability, those kind of issues, so that the investors are not spooked by the crisis. It's important, if you can, to have a dedicated spokesperson so they become the face of the company handling the crisis. Just one or two trusted executives who are handling all of the external communication. And with the media, you want to be as available as you can, but stick to the facts and then correct any misinformation promptly. And then after the crisis is beginning to be past, you want to take action to rebuild trust. So you're going to show not just promises of change, but also real corrective measures. So you can highlight maybe policy changes that you make in response to the crisis, or maybe there's some leadership accountability to be taken if the company's made a mistake, or maybe it's a question of implementing external audits or some kind of external factor of that kind. And so you continue to engage with the customers long after the crisis has faded, but then also conduct internally a post-crisis review so you can learn and strengthen your future preparedness for any future crisis. So what worked and what didn't in your response? Is there a need to update your crisis communication plan maybe? And then also training the leadership and the employees to handle future crises with greater effectiveness based on this experience. Okay, second question, excuse me. What's the right approach to internal communication during a company crisis? Very important that you take care of your employees to keep them in the loop when there's a crisis, so that you communicate early and often. That would be my starting point, I think, because you need to get ahead of any speculation and ahead of any misinformation. Rumors spread so quickly within a company, and so clear communication and regular updates give the employees confidence in their leadership, and it also gives them that sense of being able to stick to the whole company message, that consistent message that's going to navigate the crisis for you. The second thing when you're communicating with your employees is to be transparent and honest. Don't hide from them what's happening, but share facts even when the news is tough. So you need to state what's happened very clearly. You need to state what you're doing in response to what's happened, but also what it's going to mean for the employees. Don't use corporate spin with your internal clients, because if there's uncertainty, you need to say so. But you need to commit to providing updates as soon as you have them, as soon as new information emerges, so that the employees know to trust you. You may not know the next step yet, but if you tell them that you will tell them the next step as soon as you do know it, then they're going to have more trust. It's also important to acknowledge employees' concerns and provide support for them. They need reassurance. They need clarity about job security maybe, or an avenue to express their concerns as well. So if you can be honest about the worries up front, whether it's job security or workload or even the stability of the whole company, you can give them the information that maybe you're not making public, but the employees feel included. And that's a very important part for them to stay on board with you as you tackle the crisis together. But you also need to provide a safe place for feedback. You need to have question and answer sessions or anonymous forms so that the employees can express themselves back to the executive leadership in a way that is heard and recognized. And then you need to offer HR support, mental health support if necessary, particularly if it's a very stressful crisis. Maybe there are layoffs, or maybe legal troubles that the company's in. You need to acknowledge those concerns and address them. And then it's important that the employees experience the leadership being consistent and aligned in their approach to the crisis. So you need to speak with one voice as an executive leadership in that sort of situation. The employees will appreciate it if you focus on action and the path forward, so that you're not just looking back to what went wrong, but you're showing that you're leading forward. You're shifting from the immediate crisis mode into more of a solution-focused leadership for their sake, as well as the sake of the company. So you're going to be sharing specific actions that the leadership is taking, outlining next steps, reaffirming the company's long-term vision. That's going to make a big difference in that internal communication in a crisis. Another area that another question comes in for here is a big one in this society. How do I manage social media messaging and public perception effectively? Um, First off, you need to establish a clear social media strategy for a crisis. You need to develop your brand voice guidelines so that you're clear about, are we being formal or are we being conversational? What fits our company and our brand the best? Are we being professional, or you see some companies even in a crisis being kind of playful about it? And it just depends on the style of your communication. You need to stay within your brand voice as you handle a crisis in social media and in the public perception. You need to agree a crisis response plan with your team so that you can handle negative publicity in a consistent and aligned way. You need to monitor the perception of the public in real time. So some of your team need to be watching what's going on social media, seeing how the public are perceiving the steps that you're taking or the crisis that you're facing. And there are tools that you can use, Google Alerts maybe, or there's one called Sprout Social that helps you to monitor public perception of your company and your brand. You can monitor hashtags. You can watch for industry trends. You can check out your customer feedback. All of those areas will give you useful information to monitor the perceptions in real time, not to assume what you need to communicate, but to respond with insight to what you're seeing out there on social media. And then you need to engage authentically, but also proactively. So on social media, you want to be responsive and transparent in your interactions. So don't leave comments and questions unanswered. Reply quickly, reply professionally, and engage with positive mentions as well. So very often when there's a crisis, you'll have a flood of negative response, but also there will be some positive. Engage with those as well, because you're going to amplify that user-generated content in that context. And also, you need to be careful to address any negative feedback with empathy. So you're acknowledging the concerns of people, that you're acknowledging the issues that they're highlighting, and you're providing solutions rather than defensiveness. You need transparency and speed with a PR crisis, and so you need to respond swiftly and strategically. So silence is probably the worst response when there's a social media viral kind of crisis erupting. But you also need to be careful to make sure that there's human interaction. Much of the executive space these days in social media has a lot of automation to it, and rightly so, because you can achieve a lot more with automation. But make sure that as well as your automated responses, there's a human touch, that there are real people reading the comments, reading the input, and giving real human responses as well. Personalized replies really build credibility in a crisis, although of course that takes a greater resource from you as well. And then you can measure the responses, follow the data, use your engagement metrics to give you a reading on whether what you're doing is working, and be ready to adapt if necessary. American business wastes billions of dollars every year on miscommunication. If you're ready to change that trend, invest in Communication IQ today, because it will give you a great return in terms of employee alignment, retention, customer engagement, profitability, sales outcomes. All of those areas will grow as you understand the science of communication. So go to my website at markburlinson.com, click on the business button, and let's have an introductory chat today about how I can help your business be more productive by enhancing communication. And that, I suppose, leads us to the final question for this episode, which is, how do I respond best if there's misinformation or negative press? And I think the first thing to do here is to take a breath, is to assess the situation before you react, so that you craft your response to this misinformation based on the source of it, the scale of it, what the potential impact is. Verify the facts. Is this a completely false claim, or is it partially true, or is it a misinterpretation of something? And then also analyze the source of it. Is this just an anonymous post from somebody with a grudge, or is this something on social media that's gaining ground, or is this a major media outlet that's making the challenge, or spreading misinformation? Because when you gauge the impact of it, is it going to blow over quickly, or is it something that needs to be addressed immediately? Reflect before you react is obviously the first step to take, but then you need to respond quickly as well, but still thoughtfully. Remember to gauge what response is important, what response is most valuable, and tailor it to the source and the scale. If the claim is false, you can issue a clear and factual rebuttal. If there is some truth to it, acknowledge that there's a valid concern and provide some context. Maybe address the issues that it highlights and the actions you're taking to address those issues. If the claim is something really obscure or harmless, then don't overreact to it. Don't give it unnecessary attention. So be thoughtful, but do respond quickly. Don't let it sit and grow in silence. And then you need to think about where's the right channel to attack this, not attack, but to address this misinformation or these false claims. Because if it's a major news outlet or a significant reputation risk to you, then you need to make an official statement. But if it's something on social media, then it may well be easier just to simply respond on social media and not make an official statement. If it's something internal where the employees are getting confused or somebody's picked up something that's false, then you can communicate that internally only. Or if it's an individual who's got a concern, especially if it is a valid concern, approaching that individual, whether it's a journalist or maybe a local influencer, you can reach out to that person and have a direct conversation. That may be the best way to respond. So choose the right channel according to the source of the misinformation. And then you need to stay transparent and solution-oriented in your response, but stay professional as well. So you can defend the truth without being defensive. You can stick to the facts without slipping into emotion or even attacking the source of the misinformation. You can acknowledge your mistakes. That's always a valuable thing to do if you've got something wrong. You can explain the corrective actions. Be calm and confident, but also be as concise as you can, because a long-winded explanation is often seen as trying to hide something or hedge the truth. It can create more confusion. And then don't assume that your first response is all that's needed. So monitor the response beyond that first engagement, and if you need to, continue to respond as the misinformation is dealt with. But if the misinformation has already faded away, don't go on reacting to it. Don't keep it going beyond its lifespan, if you like. Each piece of misinformation really is a different case, and so it's important to engage it on its own terms. So in summary, crisis communication is not about just reacting. It's about being prepared in advance. It's about training a team to handle those things, assuming that they're going to happen, because they will, and making sure that that team is aligned even before any crisis happens. And that team has to be across professionals in the different areas of communication, as well as your executive team. And you need to invest in a structured plan, a trained team, and proactive monitoring of your public perception, your social media, and your company's reputation. So you can protect your company's reputation. You can maintain trust, even in a very challenging season. Hope that's helpful to you, and we'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.